Now, you've missed a watershed day in PFF history while you've been gone. Mike McCarthy, our friend of the program, friend of the company,
listening right now,
waxed poetic about PFF and his time here during his gap year. Let's just call it a gap year between coaching the Green Bay Packers and now the Dallas Cowboys. We obviously had the great fortune to meet him. Obviously, the Peter King interview was terrific. It does seem like he has taken a very interesting approach to his gap year, and now we get a little bit of publicity from it.
What do you think the biggest change in his, in the output of his coaching? I think he talked a lot about his process, right? His process is going to be different, more efficient, and better. I think that obviously will help him, but how does that manifest itself on the field is my big question.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing, and I think Neil talked about this with his interview that he had yesterday, there are smart people working for the Dallas Cowboys already, right? We've met a decent amount of them. They had somebody who finished in the relatively high in the big data bowl that now works for it's sort of like this. I think with McCarthy, I think he's just going to listen to more people, right? And we're going to see because honestly, one of the big issues is not necessarily employing these people. A lot of times teams will employ analytics people just to sort of write it off and not want to be called an idiot, right? But then it's actually implementing. I mean, the brilliance of the Ravens is that they literally implement all these things. The brilliance of the Eagles is that they implement those things. I think that's going to be the biggest one. I think, when you look at, some of the things, obviously McCarthy was already pretty, liberal on fourth down. I'm thinking more of the play actions, the RPOs, the motions, all those things that I tweeted about yesterday. Don't take any additional talent, right? They just take, seeing these cheat codes and using them until the rest of the league catches up. Let's talk briefly. So the Browns are clearly waiting for Saleh or Stefanski right now, right? I mean, because
they have to be.
There's no reason to not take on Josh McDaniels, or one of these other coaches. Obviously, I don't think they interviewed Marvin Lewis, but Jim Schwartz. Those guys are freely available to be taken on right now. They probably would have, by now had they gone through the interview process, all that kind of stuff. So they're really, I think, either holding out for Saleh or Stefanski. Yes,
that would be my guess. Though it's very interesting to me that Joe Judge got hired ahead of Josh McDaniel, and I kind of thought the Browns would be trying to throw the kitchen sink at him and give him an opportunity to.
Pun intended, of course.
Lamar Jackson right now is one of the top three quarterbacks left in the NFL playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
A year ago,
he was considered the worst, right?
Looked horrible against the Chargers, and people were like, "What the hell can you even do with this guy?" So he's been fantastic this year, and he offers so much from what you can do with your offense perspective. The Watson thing it seems to me again to be similar to the difference between Mahomes and Wilson, which is Watson sometimes just torpedoes your chances of winning.
Yep.
So Watson is the clear-cut number 4 guy for me.
And then it gets dicey.
It does. It really does. And this is where so Kirk Cousins has played better than Aaron Rodgers has this year. And so has Ryan Tannehill. But I would take Aaron Rodgers.
Okay. I mean, that's not egregious, right? And you're kind of earning back a little bit of Green Bay Packer Twitter's trust right now. Mike, make sure that you get that on the
what's interesting
Twitter.
About that. The Green Bay Packers fans, we were talking about Seattle against the spread. We're going to talk about this game in a second. They're 4.5 point underdogs. So it's not incongruent. They could cover and the Packers could win, and they were acting like I was saying they were going to get blown out. But for what it's worth, Russell Wilson went way higher in this draft. I would just take Rodgers over 2 guys who have a very short sample of being good and have not really been good in the playoffs.
Yeah. So yes, So now I'm at 6. Okay, so this is tricky because I don't want to dig on Jimmy G, but I do think right now I'm going to go with Cousins and Tannehill in that order.
That's egregious. All right, let's roll into some games here. So let's start with the first one on Saturday, which is the Sunday night football on Saturday afternoon. Minnesota at San Francisco. The Vikings right now -7. Total is at 44. When we talked about this on Monday morning, or not, it wasn't even Monday morning. It was actually Sunday night. I kind of guessed that it would be a little short of 7, and now that it's 7, I'm having to sit there and say, man, the Vikings covering 7 feels mathematically and internally like it might happen.
Yeah, obviously, this is not one we wrote up, but I do like Minnesota in this one. I like the fact that they mirror each other as offenses. I like the fact that Zimmer, with the interior pressure that he was able to get on Breeze last week, that's one of Garoppolo's weaknesses. A couple things scare me though about the Vikings side. One of them is that they still don't have any corners, and while Peyton, I think, didn't take advantage of that for a number of reasons last week. The Saints' second best wide receiver had only 421 yards this year. That is not true about San Francisco. San Francisco has wide receivers for days, right? Like Dante Pettis is a talented player, and he can't get on the field for that team. So that scares me. The other thing that scares me is that San Francisco is coming off of 2 weeks off, or week off, and Minnesota has to play on a Saturday after a Sunday, right? So there's so many spot-related things that I think are in San Francisco's favor. There's also the long travel for the second consecutive week. So I'm obviously I do think this number is way too high. I think if you even look back, just sort of 2 year, week 1 of 2018, the line I believe was 6, right? With Minnesota favored. I don't think the two, strengths of each team have moved this much in the last, 2 seasons. So, but there are things that make me concerned.
So the spot, I was trying to think about this as well, because the difference between these two teams on a neutral field, all things being equal, is not a ton, despite how much better the narrative is for the Niners this season because of where they came from, right? And that is a large reason of why they are viewed as being so great, is because they went from, not very good at all to first place in the NFC by an inch.
Yep.
I might add. And you think about home field, which they play in Santa Clara. They don't even play in San Francisco. And I think the Niner faithful will show up for this one. But I'm not convinced that home field is as strong, as maybe some of the stronger ones in the NFL. And then the rest component is interesting because the Vikings had that advantage over the Saints last week. And now, so are we overvaluing that performance because they had rest and now they're on the other side? Do all of those spot things really add up, including home field, to 7 points? And my thought is, no, I would make it more of a 6, maybe 5.5. The Niners, to me right now, are a team that is capable of winning close games. And earlier in the season, they were kind of blowing out these bad teams. The Vikings are not a bad team, and really they haven't. I mean, what good team have they gone and blown out?
All right,
Ravens.
Let's talk about Tennessee. Okay, so this number has moved out to 10, if I can see this properly, and it's bounced around a little bit. So we've seen Baltimore open at 9.5, got out a little bit, and then it came back down to I've seen it at 8.5, 8, and now we're back out to 10 here. So there's certainly, to coin to talk about the same thing as last week, two-way action on this game. Total on this game, 47. I kind of want to focus here on.
Been waiting to say that phrase all.
Right. Well, I mean, you're in the land of two-way action, so.
I am.
And I want to talk about the total for this game actually, because 47 seems a bit low to me. And I understand that both of these teams like to run the football, but and that's going to suppress the total, I think, when you look at it at first blush. But both of these teams are explosive as heck in both the passing game and the running game. So I think we get into a track meet here.
I agree with you. And I think one of the reasons that this number is where it is is that the Titans defense is being way overrated because they held Tom Brady to a couple of scores, which in reality was Tom Brady and the Patriots offense is really bad.
Yep.
And the Titans defense, by everything that you look at, is an atrocity, and has been for the entire latter part of the season. And to me, the things that you would need to do in order to stymie the Ravens in terms of the whole game would be to keep them from scoring early. But they don't present. They're not a team that gets any pressure. They're not. No one's stopping the Ravens' running game, right? Lamar Jackson has, I think it's 30 runs, gaining 10 plus yards before contact, and like the next closest guy has like 15. It's a complete joke, right? Like their run game is so freaking good. It'd be a top half of the league passing game in terms of efficiency, EPA, expected points added per play, which is crazy. So they're not stopping that. And then they're going to have to score points. So they're going to eventually have to sit there and realize that as great as it looks at the end of the game when you win, if Derrick Henry has 180 yards, if he has 180 yards and you lose by 20, it's not going to look very good. We have a couple of really good quarterback matchups on Sunday. Houston, Kansas City. Kansas City is a 9.5 point favorite. Total is at 51. 9.5 feels high for a Deshaun Watson, right? Like Deshaun Watson being a 9.5 point underdog, given everything we know about Deshaun Watson, seems ludicrous. It also seems a little ludicrous that, the Texans beat the Chiefs earlier this season. The thing that I then come back to is that game was probably the low point for the Chiefs in terms of Pat Mahomes had just injured his ankle the week before, clearly did not look good, and was definitely hurt. And they got terribly unlucky with the end of the half situation that the Texans ended up having to convert a fourth down. Kudos to Bill O'Brien for that. But that game was fluky as hell. So now I can come back to the Chiefs being 9.5 point favorites. What is your thought?
Yeah, and you even look at that first drive of the game, Houston versus Kansas City. Kansas City, I believe, had to actually gain 120 total yards to score because they had like a holding penalty, an offensive pass interference penalty, all that kind of stuff. Extremely fluky. This is another game, and I want to see your opinion on this. Is the public, probably not given where the lines are, but is the public going to chase Houston's defense the way that they're probably chasing Tennessee's defense after last week?
I have the opposite opinion, which is that I believe that people are talking way more about the Kansas City defense, and that is really the reason that this is 9.5, and maybe not.
Right. And we wrote about this on the website. Kansas City fundamentally is a better defense, but is it going to matter? I'm more asking because like Houston held the Buffalo Bills to 19 points the other game, right? And they've had.
Did they hold the Buffalo Bills to 19 points, or did the Buffalo Bills hold themselves to 19 points?
Well,
the Buffalo Bills settled for field goals left and right, and we know fundamentally, like I don't think the story coming out of that game in any place, whether it be a sports book or like a Sports Center, was the Texans defense was fantastic. It was all about Deshaun Watson.
Sure, and but you look at like some of the things against Jameis Winston on that Saturday. Their defense got a bunch of interceptions, right? And and then the week prior when they beat the Titans on the road, they got a bunch of Houston, I think, has been lucking into a lot of things defensively over the past month. They didn't really try to play against Tennessee in the second game. And so when I see something like that, I see, okay, Houston's like a bottom. They're the worst team in the NFL right now that's left in the playoffs against play action. Kansas City, one of the best teams. I think they run play action more than they run the football on early downs, at least. I just think this is such a mismatch between Andy Reid and Romeo Crennel, the head coach that preceded Reid in Kansas City, that I can't see betting Houston side unless you really believe in a comeback, like a full game, great game out of Deshaun Watson with Will Fuller possibly playing again.
The Sunday night game on Fox. Seattle Green Bay right now, it looks like you can actually get Green Bay, or not get Green Bay, but you will find Green Bay as a 4.5-point favorite in some places, 4 in others. At 4.5, this would both be in line with what we talked about Monday, which is that it probably shouldn't be that. It really probably shouldn't be over 3.
Yep.
Do you feel any differently?
No.
Have you wavered in any way, shape, or form?
No, I mean, Green Bay is getting healthier, but I don't think they have the players that, I don't think that they have good enough players for the whole thing of like, wow, the same argument you make about San Francisco. Oh, X, Y, and Z is getting healthy, so this is a plus. For Green Bay, like, what does that even mean, right? Like, Marquez Valdes-Scantling is getting healthy. Oh, great. Like, who cares, right? So,
yes.
I like Seattle at this number. I think that they are, they're not the better team in a lot of ways, but we talked about this the other day. The defenses aren't all that different. Both are kind of bad. Offensive lines for both teams, kind of a wash. Green Bay's a little bit better. Wilson's a lot better than Rodgers, and the receivers for Seattle are way better than the Green Bay receivers.
Yeah. I mean, I think the offensive line comparison is a little harsh on Green Bay, but that matters way less than people want to give it credit for. They want the offensive line to be this huge dictator of how the game ends up. But really, is Aaron Rodgers going to try and play hero ball and hold on to the ball forever? Or is he going to be willing to take, quick throws that are schemed up if they are schemed up? Because from a clean pocket this year, he has been below average, which blows my mind. He is making positively graded plays almost 15% less frequently than he did back in 2011. He was amazing. And that is below the league average again this year. So he's doing the things that you would expect from Aaron Rodgers, which is to win from a clean pocket at a very high rate, and then to make plays that you go, man, no other quarterback's going to make those plays consistently. And he just hasn't done those two things. So the gap there between he and Wilson and just the offensive firepower that they have, right? Wilson has Tyler Lockett, and now, DK Metcalf is a guy that he's got that like Will Fuller, stretch the field, make big deep, catch deep passes. That's so valuable in these games where you only get 12 drives, right? And one of those big plays can turn one of those drives into success very quickly. Whereas with the Packers, they just don't have that ability from an offensive standpoint. So to me, this is the bet that if I had to make one bet this week, it would be Seattle plus 4.5, plus 4.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.